back to the Childhood Cancer Perspective, and thank you all for sticking with me through this entire journey of our daughter's story, but also stories of the community through medical professionals, families, advocates, and organizations. Social media has been one of those things that has been a shining light in the community for allowing us to share our stories, but it also kind of puts up a blockade on how far we can go when it comes to telling the insights of pediatric cancer. So what I like to do through this podcast, and the whole point of this was to be able to tell things in a very uncensored fashion and really give people the understanding of what pediatric cancer is outside of what you see on the commercials on TV. So today, my guest is Becky. Thank you for being with me, and she is going to share the story of her daughter Olivia and their journey with pediatric cancer, or as my wife would call it, a shit show.
That is one way to put it, for sure.
So welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. My daughter, Olivia, was diagnosed with B-cell ALL in March of 2023. She just finished treatment this past summer and just started kindergarten, and she just turned 6. So she's doing well now. She got diagnosed from just being ill one day after school. She didn't really have any symptoms to lead me to believe that she had cancer, obviously, but she just came home with a fever and a cough, and it led into a weekend where I ended up having to bring her to the pediatrician because I thought, she had like an ear infection, whatever, and she ended up having pneumonia. When we were at the pediatrician's office, they said that her vitals were her oxygen was a little too low and her heart rate was a little too high for me to drive her to the ER, where they needed to proceed to get an x-ray to confirm pneumonia. So we had to take an ambulance from the pediatrician to the ER, where they then confirmed said pneumonia. They also confirmed a virus called human metapneumovirus. It's a mouthful, but I was told that it's very similar to RSV. They drew labs, and then that's when they found her leukemia. Her labs were trash. Her hemoglobin was a 3, and they said that we needed to go to Boston Children's Hospital right away because if her hemoglobin, we don't know how long her hemoglobin was that low, and she could go into cardiac arrest.
Wow. It's the leading up to all of this and the leading up to when children are finally diagnosed. Usually it takes so much longer than it should, right, to figure things out, what they're going along. And I feel like we get kind of passed along from doctor to doctor or ER to ER because nobody really wants to. My wife will call it looking for horses instead of zebras. You're not looking for that big thing. And of course, no doctor wants to see a kid come in with a bruise and say they must have cancer, or a kid come in with a headache, or like our daughter was constipation, and that must be a brain tumor. Nobody wants to look that far, but people are afraid. I think the medical profession is kind of afraid to look into those avenues and kind of along more of that treat 'em and street 'em type of plan. And it's unfortunate because we lose so much time getting into when the treatment starts. That could it have made a difference? To be honest with you, the way that this community, I think we understand things and the world understands it, we don't know if that extra time would make a difference because we don't understand this disease enough.
Right. I totally agree. I have multiple cancer parents that I've made really good friends with, and everyone's story is different, and it is wild how many people have told me how long it took to get their child's diagnosis. Like, although mine was quick because she was ill, and then they just found it with the labs, I feel like multiple parents are going back and forth to the pediatrician being like, my kid has had a fever and that's the only symptom that they've had and I don't understand why they have a fever. And the doctor's like, oh, it's a virus. You go home, you'll be fine. And then finally you just have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing and asking for said labs where they find other things.
Right. And unfortunately, a lot of families, a lot of parents, my wife included, you get to the point where you're asking and asking and asking, and then you're essentially feel like you're being treated like you're doing something to your child for attention. You're a monster, right? And really you're just trying to figure out what the hell's going on. And I would say most, if not all of, these diagnoses are moms using that mom gut that is, you just don't deny. That's an understanding that, I'll never understand how you can have that intuition, but you know there's something wrong, and you keep going back, and it's unfortunate. Now, a quick diagnosis is a wonderful thing, and but I think it's honestly as rare as anything in this community. And that's, you're not going to hear me say that word very often, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's rare to have diagnosis come very quickly. It seems like it just drags it on and on and on. But it can be a positive at that point to kind of figure out what's happening and get treatment started. Did treatment start right away with Olivia?
Not right away, because the moment that we ended up getting to the emergency room in Boston, her respiratory system started to decline rapidly from the pneumonia and the other virus that she was fighting. And so they were able to confirm leukemia. We were shipped up to the ICU because she had a cannula and she couldn't keep her oxygen at a normal level. So we ended up having to go up to the ICU where they had to monitor her respiratory system. She had to get, I can't even count how many x-rays. They ended up having to have her on BiPAP and CPAP. For those of you who don't know what that machine is, it's a machine that has to be like strapped to her face to help her oxygen levels. Most kids have to be sedated for it because at that age, she was 3. Normal children wouldn't allow that to just be like chilling on their face. So it got to the point where her respiratory system wasn't getting better, and we were on the verge of her having to be intubated. And then thank God she just started to get a little bit better. And so they didn't have to intubate, thankfully. But treatment didn't start right away because they weren't able to actually have her go under anesthesia for the bone marrow biopsy because her respiratory system wasn't where it needed to be safely for her to be under anesthesia. So it was kind of a long waiting game to be like, she has leukemia, but we don't know what kind. And so that was the most agonizing part.
Yeah, it's unfortunately, I think one of the biggest side effects, if you will, within at least our community is the hurry up and wait game, or
Yeah.
and unfortunately too, a lot of doctors, I think, pediatric oncologists, unfortunately, in their toolbox, a lot of it is we'll wait and see, because you're trying to figure out what's going to happen, what protocols are going to work. Hopefully, talking to other doctors around the country, figuring out what's working for that or how it's reacting. And and you're just sitting there and waiting and waiting and hoping, and hope is all we have, right? At that moment, hope is all we have in that time, and it's hard. I have to think back to when our daughter was going through all of this and getting good news and then bad news, and good news, but here's some bad news too, and
Yeah.
and how do you balance that? How do you balance the good stuff and the bad stuff? But you have to, without putting that stress on your child, I guess I would say.
Yeah, that was like a big part. It's just like they're so young and they're so oblivious to what's happening to them, really. And everything in depth and whatever. And just having to like suppress emotion for so long was wild. Like living in a fight or flight for years does something to your body.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I 100% agree. And I know that my wife and I never broke down in front of our daughter. Like we really kind of made it a point to never do that, because we didn't want her to be any more scared. She was 6 when she was diagnosed. We didn't want her to be any more scared than she already was. You're in a strange place. There's a million people coming in, and they all want to take blood, or they want to take some kind of test or put you to sleep or whatever, and it's scary. And that is a very, very delicate fine line that you walk.
Yeah.
If you're in there as a parent, as a family, and you're trying to figure out how do I best keep things as normal as possible while inside I'm broken and I don't know how to. I say all the time, parents are not built for this. We're not built to kind of handle this kind of stress. We're not, we're built for a lot of things, but to see your kid go through something that you cannot fix is not one.
Yeah. So true. Yeah, I did my very best not to break down in front of her. There were some times where, yes, sucking back the tears as much as you can. She was just like, oh, this is what we do now, right? Like after treatment started, obviously the beginning was very difficult having her get poked all the time. She had her port. She had to take multiple medications multiple times a day. And like, I hate to say that, like, they become desensitized to it. And they're just like, well, this is normal because this is what we do. And then like you have a play date with a normal kid and it's like, no, actually this is so not normal.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. They absolutely do become, I hate to see it, I hate to see it, that they become desensitized. They become, this is my new world. This is my normal. These kids at such a young age are learning when they're supposed to be learning ABCs, playing on the playground, skinning their knee and, having mommy fix it. They're learning the names of chemo drugs. They're learning the names of their nurses, and they're happy to see their nurses. Now, that's where I would say that people get a misconception, okay? When you see things on TV, and we're just going to leave it at that, the misconception is that they're happy to be where they're at. They're happy to see the people, because those nurses, child life specialists, doctors, they become your family. They become your second family, and they make it not so scary when you're there. So yeah, they're happy to see them. They're not happy to be in that place. They're not happy to be running up and down the hallways in the hospital. But at the same time, that's all they know at such a young age, and they don't know what they're missing, and their hearts are so genuine and they're innocent. So they don't know all the stuff we know in the world as adults, and they don't care about any of that. So tell us about her treatment plan and kind of how that started, did they confer with other different area hospitals or doctors to kind of come up with a plan?
They did not. Boston Children's and Dana-Farber have, once they found out the type of leukemia that she had, they have a very, known protocol that you go through. We were in the ICU for about 18 days before we even made it to the oncology floor, where then she had to proceed to be there for her induction phase, which is about 32 days of just straight treatment where she's getting continuous LPs and bone marrow biopsies. And, that's the time frame where they're plummeting her body with meds to get her in remission. And so the beginning was tough, just being in the hospital for a long time, and she was so sick. After that, we had to go through different phases of treatment. She ended up getting put in remission in May. So she was diagnosed in March. She got put in remission in May, and then her protocol is 2 years from remission. Different phases, meaning she had to be readmitted for high-dose methotrexate for 6-7 days, and depending on how your body depletes it, can be 7 days, could be 14 days. And then the next phase of treatment was getting 4 LPs done in 2 weeks, and then the next phase of treatment was a really intense chemo she had to get every 3 weeks that can cause anaphylactic shock. And it's just all these things that you go through the motions, and you're just doing it because you have to. And then we finally get to what's called maintenance phase with her treatment, where now we're just doing the same thing over and over and over again until the end.
Now, did she develop, and obviously my own story, but did she develop any serious side effects? And it's almost like a stupid question, from these treatments that she had to go through, even though it's a very known protocol. And Boston Children's and Dana-Farber, that was obviously one of the hospitals that we had actually reached out to for a second opinion. So we know that they're very versed in this and very good at what they do. But, you can't control side effects from kid to kid. Did she develop anything serious from these?
No, not serious. We had a lot of issues with constipation with the medication, where she had to be admitted multiple times and have to have NG tubes placed because there was no amount of medication that she could take to help her constipation, and she'd have to be admitted to get, a bunch of meds in her NG tube to flush her body out. And that happened, I want to say, at least 4 times throughout treatment where we were admitted for just constipation. She had to be on an antibiotic Bactrim to keep her safe from a bacterial pneumonia during treatment. At one point, the Bactrim started to make her counts drop. So there was a time frame where she couldn't get treatment for almost a month because she wasn't making her counts. And finally they were like, we might have to switch her off of Bactrim and try a different antibiotic so that we don't have these counts dropping so rapidly. So that was an antibiotic that she had to be put on called atovaquone, and that was a medication that she actually had an adverse reaction to. But what was weird is that no one was listening to me, because she started it and then she couldn't. She was just having diarrhea, she was vomiting, she was having stomach issues, and they were just playing it off like part of treatment or viral or whatever. And I'm like, oh, I swear to God, it's this antibiotic. And they were like, no, we don't think so. She ended up getting admitted. They ended up having GI doctors coming down being like, oh, I think she's having a malnutrition where she's not absorbing the right nutrients and blah, blah, blah. Let me tell you, finally, I'm like, we need to stop this antibiotic to see if it gets better. And it got better. And so we were in the hospital for almost 12 days with that one. And then they ended up switching her to another antibiotic that ended up working. But it's very frustrating to not be heard as a parent.
Well, I mean, that is probably the most important thing that I want everybody to hear is that, number one, if you're on the outside looking in, you realize that we're not crazy people, okay? We know what our kids' baselines are, okay? Even going through treatments, you know what their baselines are. You know how they react to things. You pick up on all that because it goes back to a conversation I had with somebody one time, and they said, "Do you think that you're smarter than a doctor?" And I said, "Yes, but not for the reasons that you think. I think so because we don't get to turn it off every day.
Yeah.
We are 24/7, 365. We are caregivers. We are nurses. We are, we're chauffeurs. Wherever you need, that's what we are. So we get to learn it. We get to see it. Hearing that parents aren't heard is such a scary thing because we're there every day. We see it every day. We literally have no way to fix what is going on with our child right now. And our only tool that we have is our voice. And to not listen or to not be heard is probably the one thing that we have left to hold on to as parents, right? That's our one thing, And if we don't have that, then really where are we? And what do we have in this world, in this community? It's unfortunate that I hear it all the time. It's unfortunate that we felt it too. But I will say this, that you as a parent are your child's best advocate. Always. Mm-hmm. You pick their care team. No matter what, no matter where you are, you pick their care team. If you don't feel comfortable with somebody, they're not around your kid. It happens. Almost every parent or family that I talk to, there's at least one person they've come in contact with at some point in their child's journey that is no longer allowed to be near their kid. Because it's not even bad medicine, it's bad bedside manner, really.
Yeah.
And it's so important, right? When you chose a job in a child's hospital, you chose a job where your patients really couldn't tell you what's wrong. And you have to listen to their parents, to their advocates of what's happening. And you chose that, but for whatever reason, you came to work with on a bad day. You came to work, something happened on the way there, and you're not listening. And that's where we lose a lot of this battle, and that's truly is unfortunate.
Yeah, I feel like being a parent and having a voice for them is all we have, and it's wild just not being listened to. It's kind of like the only control I felt like I had was like, I'm telling you, and this is the control I had, and then not only is she out of control, but now I'm out of control.
Yeah, it definitely is. Again, it's one of those stories that we kind of hear a lot, is that you have that's all you have is that voice. You have the knowledge of what you've been through. And I will say this too, if any doctor, and again from personal experience, if any doctor tells you that they're quote unquote dumbing things down so that you could understand it because you're not a medical professional, screw that. Because if you don't think that we don't research every single thing that's happening with our child, yes, we may be on Google, the big bad Google, whatever, but we're out there researching what's happening.
Right.
And it's not only that, now it's through social media and through any type of avenues of being able to share your story. It's other families, it's community that we're reaching out and getting information. We're doing our research. We deserve to be heard, whether it's why is this working, why is this not working, or there's something seriously wrong and you need to stop it.
Yeah.
And even if you don't think it is, honestly, as a medical professional, appease the parents, appease us, and just, okay, we'll try, no problem, okay.
Yeah. I was even like, even stop the antibiotic for 3 days. Like, I'm not even saying stop it indefinitely, just stop it for 3 days, see if her symptoms subside, and then we'll have a conversation.
And it's simple. Like, there's nothing, honestly, I think with an antibiotic, even with any of these drugs, because when they're putting in these protocols to children, every child is different. Every child reacts differently to them. No cancer is absolutely the same, no matter what. Leukemia has many, many, many different variants out there that all require different types of treatments, but the child is going to dictate what that treatment is based on, age, sex, size, year, whatever. It's a lot of different factors in there. So that one protocol that you use on XYZ may not work on my kid, and it may need to be altered here and there. The protocol that we had, it was horrible for the first 2 rounds, and they had to adjust it. And that was from me, and that was from my wife, and telling them this is not working. This is something is seriously wrong with the way these treatments are going on. And what you're doing to try to fix it is making it worse. And, luckily in that sense, we were listened to, but we had to go through 2 horrible rounds of watching what it was doing to her, knowing how intense chemo can be for a child. But this was not right. This was not the way things should be. And so you listen to the parents, listen to the families, hell, listen to the siblings. They all know what these children's baselines are and what they're supposed to be, even when they're going through these treatments.
Absolutely. And one of my advice to other parents, and even so, I have some moms who are currently at Dana-Farber and, we're off treatment, they're in treatment. And sometimes I get messages being like, hey, this is going on. And I'm like, you need to push back. Don't sit there and take it. Your child the best. And if you know what's best, then you push for that. Don't stop.
Yeah, that's huge. And this community, number one, this family, it's none that anybody wants to be a part of. Nobody wants to be a part of the pediatric cancer community. But once we're a part of it, this is by far the strongest family that I've ever been a part of in my life. And the group of people. And what we've done is the community may be growing, which is a bad thing. But it's a good thing because that network of knowledge and people to lean on and things like that is huge. Our daughter was diagnosed in 2020. We knew nobody. We knew nobody in this community. We knew nothing about it. To be honest with you, I was ignorant to the fact that there was a pediatric oncology floor in the hospitals. And,
for sure.
And then you're going through this wondering, what the hell do we do? Where are we supposed to go? Are we supposed to ask these questions? Are you supposed to question the doctors? And the answer to all that is yes, you are, but you're scared. You're in shock. You don't know what to think. Now that this community is growing in that sense, that's the best resource that we can be for those of us that are still going through it, for those of us that have lost children. We've seen a lot of different aspects of this. We can offer that guidance that I think is so important and can bring parents out of that shock stage and kind of give them the right direction that they need that so many of us didn't have.
Absolutely. I mean, I've never felt so alone in my entire life than in being in this situation. And I was able to make a mom group of me and 5 other parents, and we're still all very close, and we chat all the time, and we've, done girls' weekends together. And I hate to say the word trauma bond, but it's a real thing. And their friendships are one of the most special friendships in my life. And I have best friends from childhood, and you meet people along the way in your life, but this is a very special friendship that it's very hard to explain unless you're in it.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. And I know that support is a big thing that we're searching for. In the very beginning, you're searching for that support, and there really seems to be an outpouring of that because people want to help. They're curious about what's going on. They're scared for you. They want to pray for you, and they want to be there for you. But a lot of people don't know how to be there for you. What does that mean? The question is always, let us know if you need something. And as cancer parents, we're going to say, okay, no problem, but we don't know what we need, right?
I'm never going to let you know what I need. I'll be straight up honest with you. I'm never going to tell you.
Listen, I think it's real. I think that's the real honest understand. That's the answer, because you're either not going to do it. I know, for my wife and I, it was always, okay, we're always the ones that help, and we don't know how to ask for help, but we don't know what we need, so we always tell people, okay, if you're going to do that, don't ask them. Don't say, give me a call when you need something. Just offer it. Say, you know what? Hey, I'm dropping off coffee in the morning for you. I'm going to come over and sit with you, and we're going to chat. We're going to whatever, just anything. Just offer that assistance to them, because that human interaction outside of what you're going through is really important. But having people that can be there for you at the drop of a hat, just to be there, literally just to be there, is so much more important than people give credit to.
Yeah, just do it. I always tell people. I've had people reach out to me being like, so one of my close friends' sister's kid just got diagnosed with cancer, and I wanted to reach out to you and be like, what do you think is best to help them or whatever? And my advice is to just do something, right? Drop off a meal, give them a call, message them, being like, just sit with them while they talk about it. I don't know, anything. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing. The worst thing that you can do is walk away and not say anything and
Yeah.
or ghost somebody, because now in your heart you may think, I don't know what I can offer. I think the best thing I can do is just walk away and not cause any more stress or anything like that. But the reality of it is, I would rather you come, say the wrong thing, let me correct you, and move on, because then I know you're still there. Because we've lost, like, support is a weird thing. You know, when our daughter first was diagnosed, the support was ridiculous. It was crazy. I still have text messages on my phone from people I have no idea who it is, because they never identified themselves. They just, reached out to let us know. But then later when we got through things, we got to NED, and then we got to relapse. And then after our daughter passed, it was like the support kind of started to float away. It kind of started to dissipate a little bit. And a lot of it was because people didn't know how to talk to us. And yes, we're damaged goods. I'll just put it out there. We're broken, but we're the same people. We still have two other daughters. We have other responsibilities, and we have a life that didn't stop just because all of that happened to us. So, just be good people, be good humans, offer your time, just your shoulder to lean on. Say, you can call me and scream into the phone if you want to, because you are angry and you don't know who to do it to. Whatever it is, just offer something. But, don't walk away and think that you're doing the best thing for them.
Yeah, it's almost more hurtful.
It definitely is. It's a horrible thing. This disease in itself, it is a family diagnosis. It will break a parent past the point of what we thought we were capable of. It will also bring us past the point of exhaustion that we thought we were capable of. But it also destroys families. It destroys friendships. It destroys marriages. It does, because it's such a hard life change that they can't prepare you for this. There's no guidebook on how to prepare you for this. I often make the joke that there's probably a million different books that are written on how to be a parent, and all of those books are written by people that aren't parents. And it's the same thing with this. I think that a lot of people can write books, or they can teach, medical professionals can tell you this is how we should do things, but unless you're personally in it, then you don't really understand it. And that's the biggest thing that needs to be that shift, that adults and kids are 100% different when it comes to this disease and diagnosis.
Yeah, 100% agree.
So now we've talked a lot about the community and the diagnosis, but tell us more about Olivia.
She's the best. So when she got diagnosed, she loved Spider-Man. She was just into Spider-Man and Hot Wheels, and she wasn't really my girly girl. She just liked the things that the boys liked. And when she got really sick and then we got diagnosed, she latched on to Spider-Man. I have never seen a child become so obsessed with a superhero in my life and just be like continuously obsessed with the same thing throughout all of treatment. So like since age 3 until now, basically until she finished treatment a few months ago, like Spider-Man. Wore Spider-Man every day, believed she was Spider-Man, believed she had like powers. I don't know if it was just like, being sick and like she thought she, was more powerful when she put on her Spider-Man suit, but like she did. And she wore her Spider-Man costume to clinic like all the time, and everybody knew her as Spidey Girl. It was really like a special time. This Spider-Man was just special, and he still is special. And I have her costume that she wore throughout all of treatment, and there's like holes in it. Like she wore it out, and I'm gonna like put it in a shadow box, and it's going on her wall because that thing deserves to be seen. But it's wild because she finished treatment and started kindergarten, and I don't want to say that she did a 180, but like now she still is into Spider-Man, but she's like, all of a sudden she's like, I like sparkles, I like pink, I want to play with Barbies. And I'm like, she's like, I want a vanity, can Santa buy me makeup? I'm like, who are you? But I'm like, I'm happy that she's able to like find joy in other things, because I don't want to say that, Spider-Man is like when she was sick, but she really latched onto that. Now I feel like her interests are, blossoming, and she's able to do sports and do the normal things that she should be doing at this age.
Yeah, no, I would think that it's normal to say that would be kind of associated with a different time in her life, Spider-Man, and it would It makes sense. It's awesome that she's kind of blossoming into her own, kind of changing and, kind of finding herself and moving past all of this. I love that kids will not allow this disease at all to define who they are. It doesn't change who they are. Like, it really doesn't. Who they are on the inside, it doesn't change that. Their attitude, their the spice of life, all of that, it doesn't change because they don't have everything that we have as adults. They don't have all of our thoughts and opinions on politics and world affairs and all of that garbage, and they don't have road rage, and they don't have any of that. You know what I mean? They're just kids, and who they are is not going to be defined by a time in their life that was scary. And I remember that our daughter was very much, she was a jokester, and it didn't stop her from having that personality no matter what. Even in the hospital, it didn't stop that. And when her hair fell out, her attitude was, well, you know what? I just won't have to brush it anymore. And then they said, well, you're probably not going to be able to have kids because of the chemo. And she said, that's fine. I'll just adopt. This is at 7, 8 years old.
That's like incredible. It's incredible that their minds go to a positive place and not negative. I mean, even for being sick, like she was 6, you said, like Olivia's 6 now, and she is so much more aware now than she was obviously at 3. And the fact that they don't just jump to a negative reaction. It's always positive, and it's crazy, and it's crazy great.
Oh yeah, no, it absolutely is. It's I remember when the hair didn't started falling out after radiation, but it was at the very end of radiation. She came out of the shower, she handed me this tuft of hair and was smiling, like whatever. She walks away, I'm a puddle on the floor, because at that point it became real to me. That visible sign of cancer that we all know is, with hair, and that was the time that I thought, like, this is real. This is actually happening. But again, to all of what we're saying here is that if you have 5 minutes in your life to spare, get to know, speak to one of these kids. They will change your perspective on life, 100%, because they're going through the worst thing in the world. They're stuck in hospital beds. They're being poked and prodded by all these different people that want something from them. They're telling them, you're going to feel horrible. They're going to feel sick, and they're going to go through all of these side effects, whatever, and they're still smiling. They're showing you that who they are on the inside. But the only thing that I will say to combat that at all is that what you see on TV, the smiling kids running happy, that is such a different side. Right. It is. No, listen, you're right. It is such a side of cancer that, yes, do they smile and are they happy and they have these genuine hearts and everything? Yes, they do. But the reality is fear. The reality is vomit and being sick and being hooked up to hoses. The reality is being away from your family, being away from school, all of these things. That's the insight that people need to see, not happy and lucky. It needs to resemble ASPCA commercials, because that's the reason why I think I have 12 animals in this house.
Yes. Why do we not have Sarah McLachlan singing in the background for our kids?
Right. 100%. 100%. I think, is it a terrible thing to think about, sick kids? Is it a terrible thing to look at all of these images that we have of our kids at their absolute worst? Of course it is. But it's the reality. It's real. It's not. And I think that not showing the real side of it is a hinder, because then there's far too many people that can look at it and say, well, they've got it under control. Everything is fine. I mean, you see it on TV. Everything is under control. It can't be that bad. And we know the truth.
Yeah, I know. It is really frustrating to see commercials online like that, too, because it's like, maybe if people truly saw the real side of what we experience, more people would want to do something about it.
Yeah. No, I think that they would, because I'll say, on my phone, I say it all the time, probably every episode you'll hear it. I have pictures on my phone that would put the biggest, strongest person on their knees, from these,
I believe it,
these treatments and things like that. And up until even a few years ago, I had pictures on my phone that I hadn't even shown my wife, because these were when I was in treatment with her, and, to take pictures and document what was going on. And, to people that would say, why would you want to document this? Why would you want? Because it's part of what you're going through. It's part of that time in your life. And it's not about break it out like your photo album and want to have a time just looking at things.
No.
But it's there and social media has become kind of the way that we share our lives nowadays. but it is so censored, and we can't share what we want to share because it would then people would have to see the real side of things. We would have to show them that.
Yeah. And like all we're doing is advocating for our kids. Like we're documenting so that we can show other people what this is really like. It's not just bald kids running down a hallway that get to go to Disney World on a Make-A-Wish trip. Like it's so much more than that.
Yeah, and that's another one that Make-A-Wish scared the hell out of us, because that was, unless you're involved in this or you know it or you understand it more, you, I think, automatically, when you see when Make-A-Wish comes in the room, you think, crap, it must be terminal. This must be, because you think it's just that stigma, that cloud that's over, and it's not. I mean, Make-A-Wish is for anybody. They're going through their treatments, or going through cancer diagnosis, all of that, and major illness and things. It's a way to take their mind off of it. It's a way to give them something to really look forward to, and a goal and things like that. And so it has that kind of negative thing over it, and it scared the hell out of us when they came in, because I know my wife and I both, when they walked out of the room, were like, is this more serious than they're telling us? What's going on? Then I also remember when our oncologist sat down with us and said, this is what it is, and the prognosis isn't good. And then he walked away. That was it. That was it. And what do you do with that as a parent? What do you do with that knowledge? The prognosis isn't good.
You just let it slowly destroy you, because that's what you normally would do. But it sucks because it's like it's destroying you, but also you have to go through it, right? You just have to go right through it, and you have no other choice.
Yeah, you are in a position where you have not a whole lot of options, and certainly no knowledge on how to handle the situation. Like I said before, as parents, we're not built for this. We're not built to handle a situation where we could lose our child in a very short amount of time from something that we can't see. Something that we're supposed to protect them from, but we can't see it. And we're not built for that. And how to handle that is, again, you're going to plow right through it, and you're going to hope that you can get through on the other side and that everything's going to be okay. But your world is completely shifted with all of this. Your world is thrown upside down, and you're now in a position to fight and advocate at the same time while trying to keep yourself together.